Welcome back to Muggles Corner. I'm Eric. This will be our part 1 video for breaking down Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, scene by scene, to point out all of the missing details that you may have missed. This will be the first of many videos relating to the Wizarding World films, as there are 8 Harry Potter films and currently 2 Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them films, with another releasing soon. We will have just as many video breakdowns. But before we get into that, if you could consider hitting that subscribe button, and if you want to know when every video goes live, hit the notification bell as well, so that you never miss out. Also, cannot forget to shout out our sponsor for today's video, Pebble Creations. They are an amazing local shirt company with some incredible patterns and much more. A little more on them later. Let's dive in, shall we? In our opening scene, we see Richard Harris's Dumbledore stroll out onto Privet Drive in the dead of night. At the time that this was filmed, which would have been between 2000 and 2001, the Deluminator wasn't actually named yet. The Deluminator actually didn't get its name until Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, when it's given to Ron by Rufus Scrimgeour, Minister for Magic, as stated by Dumbledore's living will and testament. To this day, in the book still being printed, it is referred to as a put-outer. Moving on. Fun fact, this was the only film where they actually shot on Privet Drive. Because of the hassle of closing down the streets to film and the cost of everything, they voted to construct a portion of Privet Drive on the back lot of Leavesden Studios, extending the rest of it via a green screen. A reconstructed number 4 Privet Drive is still in the back lot of Leavesden, and you can walk through the front hall and through the scaffolding in the back. Contrary to popular belief, the snake in this scene is not Nagini. At this point in the Harry Potter timeline, Voldy has already created his Horcruxes. Additionally, the snake was bred in captivity, so a younger Tom Riddle wouldn't have had access to the snake, and was probably born after the creation of the Horcruxes. In the background of this scene, where Harry is bringing in the post, we can see Aunt Petunia stirring and prodding at something in a large vat of sorts. In a deleted scene, it is revealed that she is actually dyeing Dudley's old uniform, so that Harry had something for school at Stonewall High. Moving on. This is one of my favorite scenes in the movie, Hagrid's introduction. Not only are we being introduced to one of the most beloved characters in the franchise, but it was also done perfectly. Director Chris Columbus knew it would be challenging to mimic Hagrid's size, so they hired a stunt guy rugby player, Martin Bayfield, measuring at 6 foot 10 inches. On top of this, the props department created an animatronic mask for him to wear that was shaped in Robbie Coltrane's likeness. This mask could make all sorts of movements, from mouth to eyes to eyebrows and lips, and even more. Robbie himself was flabbergasted when he saw the animatronic version of himself. This was used throughout the entire series. Speaking of Robbie, he also wore platform boots to make himself look larger when interacting with the rest of the cast. The rest of his height was achieved using prop doubles and camera angles. So here we have our first look at a couple of variations of the Leaky Cauldron. Personally, I feel like I'd like to dine in this version than Alfonso's, but that's a whole nother story for another day. As we approach the Leaky Cauldron, you see the original blacked out sign above the pub entrance, then turns gold as they approach the pub, giving this our first look at the actual Wizarding World itself. Welcome, friends, to Diagon Alley. Aptly named due to the diagonally laid out path of the shopping district, this set, in its final version with the Weasley shop, is still standing at Leavesden Studios. This was one of the other sets at the studios that didn't really change much. The shops, however, can no longer be entered, and there's a lovely little tribute to William Hurt in Ollivander's shop. At the end of Diagon Alley, there stands Gringotts in all 10 feet of its glory. They used this effect in junction with an inclined street to give the illusion that the market was fading off into the distance. This road was actually cobblestone, so if you don't pay attention, you could trip and fall into Nocturne Alley. Now, the actual Gringotts Bank is a completely different story. This set is absolutely stunning. The attention to detail absolutely blew me away. From the ink pots to the job titles on the nameplates to the tiling on the floor, this set is incredible. As we walk into the bank, we are instantly greeted by dozens of goblins that all look different. Most of these goblins were children, and 2 of them were actually director Chris Columbus' kids. And we can see them in the background here pulling a small cart from one side of the frame to the other. The Goblin Teller, the voice of Griphook, and Professor Flitwick were all played by the extremely versatile Warwick Davis. That's quite a few costume and makeup changes. As we proceed down to the vaults, we go to Harry's and then to Vault 713. This vault and its contents are still on display at Leavesden as well. The intricacies of the lock are physical, not CGI. As we head back out into the daylight, maybe that's why the Gringotts lobby is a soft orange color, we head into Ollivander's. We pan from Harry, and if you look closely, you can see a small case in the cashier's desk with some wands inside. Just a nice little tidbit of detail for mere moments. The attention to detail was fabulous in this scene. Harry tries a couple of wands before he lands on his Holly and Phoenix feather that we all love so much. However, in the books, Harry tries what feels like every single wand in the shop before he landed on this one. Speaking of that Phoenix feather that gave just another feather, just one, was no less than our beloved Fox himself that we meet in the next installment. With all of his supplies now purchased, Harry heads to King Cross Station, where they actually filmed, to head to school. I've never actually been able to hear what the announcement is said in the background, so if there's anybody out there who's from London, travels here often, and knows what's being said in the background, please let us know in the comments below. You can see in the background, and as he's looking for platform 9 3/4, that the clock says 10:52, showing us that Harry only has 8 minutes to try and find a train that no one knows about, and a platform that seemingly doesn't exist. Moving on. Finally, Harry makes it onto the Hogwarts Express, which, yes, is a real train. And yes, it did run that route that we see. Before drone technology existed, the camera crew would have had to pack up all their gear and load it into a small plane or a helicopter to get these beautiful aerial shots. The interior was a completely different set from the exterior, of course, and it is still on display and used for tourists at Leavesden. I love the attention to detail and the sound as we hear the clickety-clack of the steel wheels on the polished rails, as a Dr. Sheldon Cooper would say. It just really adds to the realism of this scene. Every single one of these candy wrappers were hand-designed by the props team, and this was done throughout the film, even as the props got more and more extensive. On top of that, with HD filming coming out, the attention to detail is so important. This film came out when VHS was around, remember that. Ever wonder why Ron's wand doesn't really work well in this film either? It's because it's a hand-me-down wand from his brother Bill. Remember, the wand chooses the wizard. The wand handed down to Ron was loyal to Bill. As the Hogwarts Express pulls into Hogsmeade Station, we see Robbie's stunt double. Everyone heads to the boats and we get our very first look at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. The kids' first look was a gigantic green screen and a shallow pool being pulled by noisy chains. How very different from our first look at the castle. Those gigantic oak doors of the Great Hall, those were actual doors, and are still a major part of the studio tour's experience at Leavesden. Thank goodness, though, that the candles aren't still there. As the actors remember, the candles that were on fishing lines kept actually melting the lines and falling onto the set, so naturally, they changed it to CGI candles in the future. Other than the candles, this set piece remains the only permanent set structure at the studio. This show is brought to you by Pebble Creations, London's newest custom apparel and gift boutique. If you like the shirt that I'm wearing, $1 from your sale and every sale in February will be going back to London Victoria Hospital's NICU unit. You can support them by following the link in the description below. Then the feast began, literally. In this film alone, all of the food was 100% real, so the actors are actually eating in these scenes. In the films, it's never explained how the food gets to the tables. It's just presumed that it appears like magic. However, one of the things missed in the films was Spew, but more on that in a later video. But Spew discovered that the house elves were working at Hogwarts not as slaves, but by choice. They cooked and prepared the food on the long wooden tables in the kitchen that replicated the Great Hall, then apparated the food to the hall directly above them. The cool thing about the ghosts in this film is that they were all filmed individually in front of a blue screen, so the actors didn't really have other actors to work with. Another missed opportunity for a really neat visual effect, in my personal opinion, was the point system. Now, there was a set piece built to keep track of the points the same way they do in the books. That set piece is seen in every film, and yet it is never once referenced to, or what it actually does. I must say that the Gryffindor Common Room is still one of my favorite sets to date. On the original DVD release of the film, there was a featurette where you could actually take a 360-degree tour of a few of these sets. I will say they make it look a lot bigger than it actually is. However, one of the most gorgeous set pieces I've ever seen, it didn't grow with the actors. All of the beds in the dormitories are singles and what look like about 5 feet long. One of the tallest actors by the end of it, Matt Lewis, definitely wouldn't have been able to fit in that bed standing at over 6 feet tall. Both of these sets are still standing at Leavesden Studios. Thank you for watching part 1 of our video breakdown for Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. If you want to know when part 2 goes live, please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. You can support this channel directly by supporting today's sponsor, Pebble Creations. Thanks again for coming, and until next time, mischief managed.